I woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the quiet hum of a machine counting my breaths. And the first thing I heard wasn't concern. It was my son's voice outside the door saying, "She won't fight it. She barely knows what day it is." I didn't move. I didn't open my eyes. Because something in the way he said it told me this wasn't a mistake. It was a plan already in motion. "Hello, my dears. If this were me, I'd stay quiet just a little longer." People reveal more when they think you're not listening. And tell me, would you pretend or confront him right away? My name is Miriam Bellwether. I'm 75 years old, and until that morning, I had never woken up in a place where I wasn't sure who had made the decisions for me. My tongue felt like cotton, my chest heavy, and my fingers stiff as though I'd been gripping something in my sleep. I kept my eyes closed and listened. "He signed everything?" a woman's voice asked. Calm, professional. "Yes," Corbin replied. "My son, my only child. Voluntary transfer. Silver Pines residence. It's all arranged." Silver Pines. I had heard of that place. A quiet facility with manicured hedges, soft piano music in the lobby, and doors that locked from the outside. "Good," the woman said. "Then we'll proceed once she's discharged." I opened my eyes. The ceiling was white. Too white. The kind of white that makes you feel like a mistake has already been cleaned up before you even know what it was. A plastic bracelet circled my wrist. My name, a barcode, and a date I didn't remember living through. My heart monitor beeped steadily beside me, a metronome for a life someone else had already started organizing. The door opened. A nurse stepped in, mid-30s, dark hair tied low, eyes that actually looked at me instead of through me. "You're awake," she said quietly. "Yes," I answered, my voice rough but steady. "How long have I been here?" "Overnight," she said. Then, after a pause, "You had a reaction. Your son brought you in." "Of course he did." I shifted slightly, ignoring the dull ache in my ribs. "What kind of reaction?" She hesitated. That told me more than any answer. "Rest," she said instead. "Doctor will be in shortly." She turned to leave, but something in me, something that had kept me running a business for 30 years, that had buried a husband and still paid the bills on time, rose up sharp and clear. "What did he sign?" I asked. She stopped. Not turned. Stopped. Then slowly, she looked back at me. "What did my son sign?" I repeated. Her eyes flicked to the hallway, then back to me. For a moment, I thought she'd give me the same polite lie everyone gives old women when they think we won't understand. But instead, she walked closer. Close enough that I could see the faint scar above her eyebrow. "He's arranged for your transfer," she said under her breath. "To a residential facility. Silver Pines." "And I agreed to that?" I asked. She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I let out a slow breath, careful not to let my hands shake. "Bring me the paperwork." "I can't do that without whose permission?" I asked, quieter now. Sharper. "His?" The nurse looked at me for a long second. Then she did something unexpected. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a phone, and placed it gently into my hand. "Call someone," she whispered. "Someone who isn't him." My fingers curled around the phone like it was something fragile and dangerous at the same time. I looked at her, really looked this time. "What's your name?" I asked. "Nina," she said. "Of course it was." I nodded once. "Thank you, Nina." She stepped back just as the door opened again. Corbin walked in, already wearing that careful expression he used when he wanted to look like the reasonable one in the room. Tall, neat, expensive watch. The faint scent of bergamot cologne that always made him seem more polished than honest. "Mom," he said, forcing a smile. "You're awake." I watched him, really watched him. And for the first time in my life, I didn't see my son. I saw a man who had already decided what would happen to me and was just waiting for me to catch up. "I am," I said calmly. His shoulders relaxed a fraction. "Good. That's good. You gave us quite a scare last night." "Us." "There was no need to worry," I replied. "I remember everything." That was a lie, but it was a useful one. He hesitated, just for a second. Then he smiled again. Thinner this time. "Doctor said you were disoriented. Happens at your age." "At your age." I let the words hang between us like something unpleasant left out too long. "And what exactly did you tell the doctor?" I asked. "Just the truth," he said lightly. "That you've been forgetful. That you've had a few episodes. Nothing serious. We just want what's best for you." "We?" I shifted my hand under the blanket, pressing the phone against my palm so he wouldn't see it. "What's best for me?" I repeated. "Yes," he said, stepping closer. "You can't stay in that house alone anymore. It's not safe. Silver Pines is a beautiful place, Mom. You'll be comfortable. Taken care of." Taken care of. Like furniture. I looked up at him, steady and quiet. "And my house?" I asked. He blinked. "What about it?" "What happens to my house, Corbin?" There it was, the smallest crack. "We'll figure that out," he said quickly. "One thing at a time." I smiled, not kindly, not warmly. Just enough to let him know I had heard everything he didn't say. "Of course," I said. "One thing at a time." He nodded, relieved, mistaking my calm for surrender. People always do. They think silence means agreement, that age means weakness. They forget that some of us learned patience long before they learned how to lie. "Get some rest," he said, already turning toward the door. "I'll handle everything." I waited until he left. Waited until the hallway swallowed the sound of his shoes. Then I brought the phone out from under the blanket. My hands were steady now. I didn't scroll. I didn't hesitate. I dialed a number I hadn't called in 3 years. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, low and sharp as ever. "Miriam Bellwether," she said without greeting. "If you're calling me, something's gone very wrong." I closed my eyes for just a moment. "Yes, Vera," I said. "It has." A pause. Then softer, but far more dangerous. What did he do? I opened my eyes and looked at the door my son had just walked through. "He signed papers," I said, "to put me away." Silence. Then Vera exhaled slowly. "Stay exactly where you are," she said, "and don't sign another thing." "I won't." "And Miriam?" "Yes?" Her voice dropped to a tone I hadn't heard since the last time we sat in a courtroom together, listening to someone destroy themselves under their own lies. "If he's already moving this fast," she said, "then he's not just trying to help you." I looked down at the hospital bracelet around my wrist. "I know," I said quietly. Then I lifted my head. "And this time," I added, "he's going to regret it." Corbin didn't come back for almost 20 minutes. That told me everything. He wasn't sitting outside worrying about me. He was coordinating, making calls, adjusting whatever version of my life he'd already sold to someone else. Nina returned first, this time with a clipboard, but she didn't hand it to me. She stood beside the bed, angled just enough to block the view from the hallway. "Doctor's reviewing your discharge," she said aloud. Then, quieter, "Your friend is on her way." "Good," I replied, just as quietly. Nina gave the smallest nod and left. I sat there, staring at the white sheet pulled too tight across my legs, and forced my mind backward. The last clear memory before this room, before the bracelet, before my son started speaking about me like I wasn't present. Dinner, Corbin's house. Tessa had insisted I come. That alone should have warned me. She set the table with that expensive porcelain she never used, thin plates with a pale gold rim, the kind you're afraid to touch too hard. There had been something else, too. A smell. Bitter. Almost herbal. Not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. "What is this?" I'd asked, lifting the teacup. "Just something calming," Tessa said. "Chamomile blend. You've been stressed lately." I remember the taste now. Not chamomile. Something sharper, like crushed rue leaves mixed into honey. After that, gaps. Not confusion, not memory loss. Gaps. The door opened again. Corbin returned, this time with a man in a white coat trailing behind him. Doctor, late 50s, efficient eyes. "Mrs. Bellwether," the doctor said, stepping closer. "Good to see you awake. How are you feeling?" "Clear," I said. He exchanged a quick glance with Corbin. "That's good. Your son mentioned some disorientation." "I remember everything," I interrupted. Another pause. Doctors don't like interruptions. Sons like Corbin like them even less. "We're just being cautious," Corbin added quickly. "She's been forgetful, repeating things, not sleeping well." I turned my head slowly and looked at him. "Is that what you told them?" His jaw tightened, but he smiled. "Mom, you know I worry." "No," I said calmly. "You plan." The room went quiet. The doctor cleared his throat. "We're not making any decisions yet. We just want to ensure your safety." "My safety?" I repeated. "And who decides that?" "Well, I do," I said. "As long as I'm competent." The word hung in the air like a challenge. The doctor shifted slightly. "Of course. We'll conduct a brief assessment before discharge." "Good," I said. "Do it now." Corbin stepped forward. "Mom, there's no need to rush." "There is," I said, sharper now. "Because I'd like to see the documents you've already signed on my behalf." Silence. The doctor looked at Corbin again, this time longer. "Mr. Bellwether," he said carefully, "did your mother sign any transfer forms?" Corbin hesitated. Just a fraction too long. "She agreed verbally," he said finally. "Last night, before she—" "No," I said. Not loud, not emotional, just final. I didn't. The doctor's expression changed, subtly, but enough. I'll need to review the paperwork personally, he said. Corbin's smile vanished completely now. That's unnecessary. Everything's already... It's protocol, the doctor replied. I watched my son's control slip, just a little more. Good. The door opened again before he could respond. Vera didn't walk in like a guest. She entered like someone who already owned the room. Dark coat, silver hair pulled back tight, leather folder tucked under her arm like it had weight. Real weight. The kind that comes with consequences. Miriam, she said, not even looking at Corbin yet. You look better than expected. Vera, I replied, you're late. I stopped to print something, she said, finally turning her gaze toward my son. That was when Corbin understood. This wasn't going to be quiet. And you must be the son, Vera added, the one making decisions. Corbin straightened. I'm handling my mother's care, yes. Without her signature? Vera asked mildly. She agreed. Show me, Vera said. Just like that. No raised voice, no accusation. Just 2 words that land harder than shouting. Corbin didn't move. Vera stepped closer, placing the folder on the small table beside my bed. Slowly, deliberately. I'll make this simple, she said. Either you show us every document you've submitted in her name, or we request them through a formal review. Another pause. Longer this time. Corbin exhaled through his nose. This is ridiculous. I'm trying to help her. Vera tilted her head slightly. No, she said. You're trying to move faster than she can object. I almost smiled. The doctor shifted his weight. Mr. Bellwether, I will need those documents. Corbin looked at him, then at me, then back at Vera. For the first time since I woke up, he wasn't in control, and he knew it. I'll get them, he said finally, voice tight. He turned and walked out. The door closed. Vera waited until his footsteps faded. Then she leaned slightly toward me and spoke in a voice only I could hear. How bad is it? I looked at the empty doorway. At least 1 forged signature, I said. Maybe more. Vera's eyes didn't widen. They sharpened. Good, she said quietly. I raised an eyebrow. Good? Yes, she replied, because that means he's already made a mistake. She tapped the folder once, and I came prepared for it. Corbin came back slower this time. Not confident, not polished, just controlled enough to pretend nothing had shifted. He held a thin stack of papers in his hand, too thin for something that was supposed to move a person out of their own life. Vera didn't reach for them immediately. She let him stand there for a second longer than was comfortable. Then she extended her hand. Let's see. He hesitated, then passed them over. I watched her eyes move, line by line. No rush, no reaction. Just that quiet way she had of reading like she was already building a case in her head. Here, Corbin said quickly, pointing. Her signature, page 3. Vera turned the page. I didn't need to look. I didn't sign that, I said. Corbin exhaled sharply. You did. Last night. You just don't remember. I remember the tea, I said. That stopped him. Just enough. What tea? He asked, too fast. The one Tessa made, I replied. The one that didn't taste like chamomile. Silence. The doctor shifted again. He was listening now. Really listening. Vera tilted the page slightly toward the light. Miriam, she said without looking up, when was the last time you changed your signature? After I broke my finger, 1989, I said. The M never closes fully anymore. She nodded once, then tapped the paper. This one does, she said. Corbin stepped forward. That proves nothing. No, Vera replied calmly. It proves someone used an old sample. I could see it now, too, even from where I sat. The curve of the letter, too smooth, too practiced, like it belonged to a younger version of me who hadn't yet learned to compensate for pain. Corbin laughed under his breath. This is absurd. You're over-analyzing handwriting. And you're underestimating it, Vera cut in. She flipped another page. And this, she added, is even more interesting. What? Corbin snapped. She turned the document so the doctor could see. Witness signature, she said. Daphne Rusk. The doctor frowned. Registered notary? Vera didn't answer right away. She just looked at Corbin. No, she said finally. Not last time I checked. Something flickered across his face. There it was. Not guilt, recognition. He knew that name mattered. I leaned back against the pillow, slower now, steadier. You're rushing, I said quietly. He looked at me. What? You're making mistakes, I continued. And you never used to do that. His jaw tightened. I'm trying to fix things before they get worse, he said. For who? I asked. He didn't answer. He didn't have one that would sound right out loud. Vera closed the folder with a soft snap. Here's what's going to happen, she said. These documents get reviewed. Properly. Independently. Corbin shook his head. No, we don't need to drag this. We already are, she said. The doctor nodded slowly. I agree. We'll pause any transfer until verification is complete. That was it. One sentence, and the plan he had already set in motion stopped, not destroyed. Not yet, but no longer moving without me. Corbin stared at the doctor like he'd just betrayed him. Then he looked at me again. Different this time. Not like a son. Not even like a man trying to help. Like someone realizing the situation wasn't under control anymore. And for the first time since I woke up, I saw it. Not fear. Not regret. Something colder. Calculation. Fine, he said finally. Review it. Then he turned toward the door. But before he left, he stopped. Just for a second. And without looking back, he said, This isn't over. The door closed behind him. Vera didn't move. Neither did I. After a moment, she spoke quietly. He's not bluffing. I know, I said. I stared at the paper still lying on the table. My name written in a hand that wasn't mine. And next time, I added, he won't make it this easy to catch. Vera gave a small, humorless smile. Good, she said. I glanced at her. Why good? Because now, she replied, tapping the folder again, we know he's already crossed the line. I exhaled slowly. Yes. He had. And once someone crosses that line, They don't stop. They just get smarter. I didn't leave the hospital that day. Not because I couldn't, because I refused to leave on his terms. Vera made that very clear within the next hour. "They'll try again," she said, standing by the window with her arms folded, watching the parking lot like she expected someone to circle back. "Not with these papers, but with better ones." "Guardianship?" I asked. She nodded. "Emergency first, then permanent. They'll argue you're unstable, confused, a risk to yourself." I let out a quiet breath. "And what do I do?" Vera turned to me. "You stay exactly what you are right now." "And what's that?" "Clear, precise, and difficult to move." I almost smiled. The doctor returned shortly after, with a small stack of forms and a tone that had shifted just enough to matter. "Mrs. Bellwether," he said, "we're delaying discharge until everything is clarified. But medically, you're stable." "I know," I replied. He hesitated. "Your son mentioned prior episodes, falls, memory issues." "I'd like those documented," I said. "Every single one he claims." Another pause, then a nod. "Understood." "Good. Let him put it in writing. People like Corbin always forget. Once a lie is written down, it has to survive being read by someone else." When the doctor left, Vera stepped closer and opened her folder again. "I made a call on the way here," she said. "Bank, you've had activity." That got my attention. "What kind?" "Someone requested document access 2 days ago. Proxy authority." "Corbin. Did they get anything?" I asked. "No," she said. "But they tried." I leaned back slowly, letting that settle. So this hadn't started last night. This had been building. "Vera," I said, "call Hollis Vane." Her eyebrow lifted slightly. "You trust him?" "I trust that he doesn't like being used," I said, "and Corbin wouldn't know how to convince him properly." She gave a small nod and stepped aside to make the call. I watched her as she spoke, quiet, controlled, giving only what was necessary. When she hung up, she looked almost satisfied. "He'll freeze everything until he sees you in person," she said. "Good. That includes the depot." That word landed differently. The depot. Bellwether Tea Depot. Old brick, rusted shutters, half forgotten by most of the city. Except, apparently, not by my son. I stared at the ceiling for a moment. "Of course it does," I murmured. Vera studied me. "There's more, isn't there?" "Yes," I said, "but not here." Right then, Nina stepped back into the room. "You have about 10 minutes," she said quietly. "Your son's asking questions at the desk." Vera nodded. "That's enough." Nina hesitated, then added, "If you leave, don't go straight home." I looked at her. "Why?" I asked. She met my eyes directly now. "Because he already told someone you would." Silence. Not loud, not dramatic, just heavy. Vera closed the folder slowly. "Well," she said, "that makes things simpler." "How?" I asked. She looked at me, that sharpness back in her eyes. "Because now we know," she said. "This isn't just about putting you somewhere quiet." I felt my fingers tighten slightly against the sheet. "No," I said softly. It's about moving me out of the way. Vera nodded once. Exactly. Outside, I could hear Corbin's voice again, louder now, less patient. Good. Let him get impatient. I turned my head toward Vera. Get me out of here, I said. She didn't hesitate, already reaching for her coat. Where to? She asked. I looked down at the bracelet around my wrist, then back at her. Somewhere he wouldn't think to look first. Vera paused. Then a faint smile touched her lips. I know just the place, she said. And for the first time since I woke up, I felt something shift. Not fear, not confusion, control, small, fragile. But mine again. That would have been the first place Corbin checked. The second would have been the depot. The third, my bank. Vera drove without asking too many questions, which is why I had always trusted her. Some people fill silence with noise. Vera lets it sit until it becomes useful. Blue Heron? I asked when she turned off the main road. She nodded. Still quiet, still forgotten, and the owner still owes me a favor. Of course he did. The Blue Heron Inn hadn't changed much in 20 years. Same creaking wooden stairs, same faded wallpaper with tiny cranes printed along the seams, same faint smell of lemon polish and old books. It wasn't elegant, but it was private. And right now, privacy mattered more than comfort. The owner, Mr. Kessler, didn't ask questions, just handed Vera a brass key and said, "Second floor, back room." No paperwork, no names. Perfect. Inside, the room was small but clean. A narrow bed, a wooden desk, a kettle that looked older than my son, and a window overlooking the river bend where the current slowed just enough to reflect the sky like glass. I sat down slowly, letting the quiet settle around me. No one will look here first, Vera said, closing the door behind us. No, I replied. He'll go for leverage. She glanced at me, meaning my house, my accounts, and the depot. Vera leaned against the desk. Tell me about the depot. I exhaled slowly. It wasn't supposed to matter, I said. Not anymore. But it did. Harold bought it in '94, I continued. Auction. Flood-damaged inventory, bankrupt importer, nobody wanted the liability. He said the location would matter someday. And did it? Vera asked. I looked out the window. The river wall runs under that property, I said. Only legal access point on that stretch. You can't build anything major there without it. Vera straightened slightly. And someone's trying to build something. Yes. She didn't ask how I knew. She didn't need to. Instead, she reached into her folder and pulled out a printed sheet, sliding it across the desk toward me. Larch and Vale Properties, she said. Filed preliminary interest in riverfront redevelopment. 2 weeks ago. I stared at the name. There it was, right on time. And let me guess, Vera added. Your son suddenly started caring about a warehouse he used to call junk. I gave a quiet, humorless breath. He brought me an offer last month, I said. Said it was generous. Said I should simplify my life. And you said no. I said I'd think about it, I corrected. Which means no, if you know me. Vera nodded once. And now, she said, he tries to remove you from the equation entirely. Exactly. A soft knock came at the door. Both of us froze. Not fear. Reflex. Vera moved first. stepping quietly to the side of the door instead of in front of it. "Who is it?" she asked. "Nina," came the answer. We exchanged a glance. Vera opened the door just enough. Nina stepped in quickly, closing it behind her. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "And yet," Vera replied calmly, "you are." Nina ignored that. She looked at me instead. "He's not calming down," she said. "Your son, he's calling people, not just the hospital." My stomach tightened slightly. "Who?" I asked. "I don't know all of them," she admitted, "but I heard one name twice. Something like Vale?" Vera and I looked at each other. That was faster than I expected. Nina stepped closer. "And there's something else," she added. "They're preparing another request. Emergency guardianship. They're saying you're a danger to yourself after today." Of course they were. When one door closes, Corbin doesn't stop. He finds another. I stood up slowly. My body protested, but I ignored it. "How long?" I asked. "Maybe a day," Nina said. "2 at most." Not much time, but enough. I walked to the window and looked out at the river. Still calm. Still moving exactly where it wanted to go. "They think I'm slowing them down," I said quietly. Vera stepped beside me. "And are you?" she asked. I turned my head slightly. "No," I said. Then I looked back at the water. "I'm about to stop them." Vera didn't waste time. "Sit," she said, already pulling her phone out again. "If they're moving for emergency guardianship, we move faster." Nina stayed near the door, tense but steady. She wasn't part of this world. Papers, signatures, quiet legal wars. But she understood enough to know what was coming. I lowered myself into the chair, my fingers resting on the edge of the wooden desk. "Tell me exactly how they do it," I said. Vera glanced at me. "They file a petition claiming you're incapacitated. They attach statements, doctor notes, witness accounts, anything that paints you unstable. Then they push for immediate control for your safety. And if it goes through, you lose decision-making power, temporarily at first, but long enough for them to act. Sell the house, access the accounts, transfer the depot." I nodded slowly. "So we don't let it go through," I said. "No," Vera replied. "We don't let it stand." She tapped her phone once, then looked at me again. "We need 3 things," she said. "Proof of competence, proof of intent, and proof they've already crossed the line." I gave a small breath. "We have the signature." "That's one piece," she said. "Not enough on its own." Nina stepped closer. "What about the hospital records?" she asked. "You were clear. You answered everything. I saw it." Vera turned to her. "Would you put that in writing?" she asked. Nina hesitated, not out of fear, out of understanding. "This could cost me my job," she said. I met her eyes. "And if you don't," I said quietly, "they'll do this to someone else who doesn't have a Vera." Silence. Then Nina nodded once. "I'll write it," she said. "Good. One more piece." Vera looked back at me. "Next, intent. Why now? Why rush?" "The depot," I said. "Exactly." She opened her folder again, pulling out the Larch and Vale printout. "We tie him to this," she said. "We show motive." Nina frowned slightly. "But how do you prove that?" I didn't answer right away. Because I already knew. Corbin doesn't negotiate. I said finally. He repeats. Vera tilted her head. He says the same phrases, I continued. Same arguments, same timing. Someone feeds him the structure. Vera's eyes narrowed slightly. Meaning he's not leading this, she said. No, I replied. He's following. And that made it worse, because someone smarter was behind him. Nina shifted. So, what's the third thing? Vera didn't answer. She just looked at me, and I understood. Proof they've already acted, I said. She nodded. Exactly. The room went quiet again, but this time it wasn't uncertainty. It was alignment. I stood up slowly, ignoring the ache in my side. They tried the bank, I said. That's one. Vera nodded. They tried the papers, she added. And they're preparing guardianship, Nina said. 3 moves, already on the board. I walked to the small mirror hanging near the door. For a second, I just looked at myself. Pale, tired, older than I felt yesterday, but not broken, not confused, not done. They think I'm reacting, I said quietly. Vera crossed her arms. Aren't you? I turned to her. No, I said. Then I reached for my coat, slow and deliberate. I'm positioning. She's alone, targeted, and running out of time. But instead of panic, she starts building a case. Tell me honestly, would you fight like this or try to fix things with your family? Me? I'd already be 3 steps ahead. Vera watched me carefully now. That tone, she said. I remember it. Good, I replied, because the next step matters. It does. I picked up the phone Nina had given me. There was one call I hadn't made yet. One person Corbin hadn't accounted for, and one place this whole thing would eventually lead back to. The depot. I looked at Vera. We're not waiting for them to come to us, I said. What are you thinking? She asked. I held the phone a little tighter. We go where the deal is, I said, and we listen. Nina frowned slightly. Listen to what? I gave a faint, cold smile. To the people who think I'm already out of the way. Silence. Then Vera nodded slowly. All right, she said. Let's see what your son has already promised. In your name. We didn't go to the depot right away. That would have been too obvious. People like Corbin don't just act, they prepare. And if he was already talking to Larch and Vale, then someone had already been there before us, measuring, planning, deciding how much my life was worth per square foot. No car, Vera said. We take a cab, no trace back. Nina stayed behind. That was the deal. If anything moved at the hospital, any filing, any call, she'd alert us. By the time we reached the river district, the sky had already turned that deep gray blue that comes just before full dark. The depot stood where it always had. Old brick. Rusted signage barely clinging to the wall. Windows clouded with dust and time. To most people, it looked abandoned. To me, it looked watched. You feel that? Vera asked quietly. Yes, I said. We didn't go through the front. There was a side entrance, hidden behind a collapsed stack of old crates that still smelled faintly of dried tea leaves. Lapsang Souchong, if memory served. Harold used to say you could tell the history of a place by its scent. Inside, it was colder than I expected. Not empty. Used. That was the difference. There were footprints in the dust. Recent. Vera noticed them too. "They've been here," she said. "Of course they have." We moved slowly, keeping our steps light. The old wooden floor still remembered how to creak if you weren't careful. Voices reached us before we reached them. Two men, one calm, measured, the other impatient. "I'm telling you, she won't interfere," the second voice said. "Corbin." I stopped. Vera placed a hand lightly on my arm, steadying, not stopping. The first man spoke then. Smooth voice. Controlled. Not local. "That's not the concern, Mr. Bellwether. The concern is certainty." Silence. Then Corbin again. Tighter now. "You'll have it. The guardianship is already in motion." There it was. Out loud. No pretending, no careful phrasing. Just truth. The man hummed softly. "And the property?" Corbin didn't hesitate. "Once it's approved, I'll have full authority. The depot, the house, the accounts, everything." I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not shock. Confirmation. Vera leaned closer, barely a whisper. "Keep listening." The man spoke again. "You understand, Mr. Bellwether, Larch and Vale does not proceed on assumptions. We require control, not promises." "You'll have it," Corbin insisted. "I told you, she's not in a position to object." That did it. That one sentence. That quiet, confident lie. I stepped forward. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just enough for my voice to carry. "That's interesting," I said. Silence snapped into place. Footsteps shifted. Corbin turned first. And for the first time since this began, he looked genuinely unprepared. "Mom?" he said. Not warm, not relieved, startled. Behind him stood a man I didn't recognize. Mid-50s, immaculate coat, eyes already calculating the damage. Benedict Sloan, if I had to guess. I didn't look at him yet. Just Corbin. "You speak very confidently for someone who doesn't own a single thing he just promised," I said. His mouth opened. Closed. Then opened again. "You shouldn't be here," he said finally. I smiled. Small, controlled. "And yet," I replied, "here I am." Vera stepped into the light beside me, calm as ever. The other man, Sloan, shifted his attention immediately. "And you are?" he asked. "Someone who reads contracts before they're signed," Vera said. Good answer. Corbin's composure started slipping. "This is private," he snapped. "You have no right." "I have every right," I interrupted. Now I looked at Sloan. "You're negotiating for this property," I said. "Then you should know something important." He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Men like him listen differently. Carefully. I took one step closer. "Any deal involving this depot," I said, "requires my direct consent." A pause. Then calmly, "And I haven't given it." The air changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Sloan glanced at Corbin. Just once. That was all it took. Doubt. Small. But there. Corbin saw it too. "Don't listen to her," he said quickly. "This is exactly what I was telling you about. Confusion, paranoia." "Say that again," I said. Quiet. Flat. He froze. I held his gaze. Call me confused, I said. One more time, right here, in front of your business partner. Silence. Heavy. Then Vera spoke, almost gently. You might want to reconsider your wording, she said, especially with witnesses. Sloane's eyes flicked between us now. Me, Corbin, the space between truth and liability. I could almost hear the calculation. Good. Let him calculate, because this wasn't over, not even close, but now it was visible. And that changes everything. Sloane didn't answer right away. That told me more than anything he could have said. Men like him don't react. They assess. And right now, he was recalculating everything Corbin had just promised him. Mr. Bellwether, he said slowly, eyes still on me. You mentioned authority. I have it, Corbin snapped. It's in process. In process, Sloane repeated. That was the crack. Small, but real. Vera stepped in, smooth as ever. Which means not in effect, she said. Legally speaking. Corbin turned on her. You're interfering in something you don't understand. Vera gave a faint smile. I understand liability perfectly. Silence again. Then Sloane exhaled softly. I think, he said, we may need to revisit this discussion once all parties are properly aligned. That was his way of stepping back without admitting it. Corbin heard it too, and panic finally started to bleed through. You're backing out, he said, after everything we discussed? I'm pausing, Sloane corrected. There's a difference. He looked at me one more time, measured, interested, then nodded slightly. Mrs. Bellwether. Not warm, not friendly, but respectful enough to matter. And then he turned and walked out. Just like that. Deal paused. Not dead, but no longer his. The silence that followed felt heavier than the conversation. Corbin didn't move for a few seconds. Then he turned to me. Slowly. You had no right, he said. There it was again. Not anger first. Ownership. I stepped closer. I have every right, I said. It's my name, my property, my life. You don't understand what you just did, he snapped. That deal was never yours to make. His jaw tightened hard enough I thought I heard his teeth grind. You're sabotaging everything, he said. For what? Pride? I shook my head. No, I said. Then I held his gaze. For clarity. That landed, harder than shouting would have. He took a step closer now, lowering his voice. You think this is over? He said. You think one interruption changes anything? I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, he was right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. I think, I said finally, you just lost the only version of this where you controlled the timing. His eyes flickered. Just slightly. Good. Vera shifted beside me. And you've exposed intent, she added. That's going to matter. Corbin let out a sharp breath. You have nothing, he said. No proof, no leverage, just stories. I almost smiled, because that was the moment he made his second mistake. Is that what you think? I asked. He frowned. Vera reached calmly into her coat and pulled out her phone. She didn't wave it. didn't dramatize it. She just tapped the screen once, and a voice filled the empty depot. His voice. Once it's approved, I'll have full authority. The depot, the house, the accounts, everything. Silence. Corbin didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't even blink. Vera lowered the volume. People always forget, she said quietly, that conversations don't disappear just because they're inconvenient. I watched my son carefully, waiting, not for apology, for reaction. And what I saw wasn't regret. It was calculation again. Faster now, sharper, more dangerous. Illegal recording, he said finally. Weak, too quick. Not in this context, Vera replied. But we can let a judge decide that, if you'd like. Another pause. Then Corbin laughed. But there was nothing light in it. Fine, he said. You want to play like this? Let's play. There it was. No more pretending, no more soft edges, just conflict. Good. I stepped closer, just enough that he couldn't ignore me. You already started the game, I said, and you're already behind. His eyes locked onto mine. Cold, familiar. But different now. Not my son. Not anymore. Just a man who had decided something about me and didn't expect to be challenged. Guardianship hearing will go through, he said. You won't stop that. I tilted my head slightly. Try me. He held my gaze for a second longer, then turned and walked out the same way Sloane had, but faster, less controlled. The moment the door shut behind him, the air shifted again. Vera exhaled quietly. Well, she said, that escalated exactly as expected. I didn't answer immediately. I was still looking at the doorway, still thinking. He's not backing down, I said. No, Vera agreed. And now, I added, he knows I'm not either. That changed the board, completely. Vera slipped the phone back into her coat. We have proof of intent, she said. That helps. Not enough, I replied. She looked at me. What are you thinking? I turned slowly, scanning the depot. The dust, the beams, the past, and everything buried underneath it. He's still moving forward, I said. Which means he thinks he still has something we don't see yet. Vera frowned slightly. And you want to find it? Yes. I looked back at her. Before he uses it. A beat. Then she nodded. All right, she said. Then we stop reacting. I held her gaze. Exactly. Then I glanced toward the dark hallway leading deeper into the depot. Because whatever he's planning next, I said quietly, it's already in motion. We stayed in the depot longer than we should have. Not out of hesitation, out of instinct. Because something about the way Corbin said it, you won't stop that, didn't sound like a bluff. It sounded like a man who already had his next move secured. Don't move yet, I said quietly. Vera paused halfway to the door. You see something? No, I replied. Then I narrowed my eyes slightly, scanning the space again. That's the problem. Too clean, too prepared. The footprints we'd seen earlier didn't stop near the entrance. They went deeper, toward the old office section Harold used to keep locked. I turned without another word and walked toward it. Miriam, Vera said under her breath, catching up, if he comes back. He won't, I said. Not tonight. Why? Because he thinks he already won. That made her go quiet. The hallway narrowed as we moved deeper inside. The air changed too. Less dust, more disturbance. Like something had been moved recently. Boxes shifted, shelves cleared. Then we reached the door. Harold's old office. It wasn't locked anymore. That alone told me everything. I pushed it open slowly. The room inside was smaller than I remembered. Time does that. Shrinks places that once felt permanent. But something was wrong. The metal cabinet in the corner, open. Drawers pulled out. Files missing. Vera stepped past me, eyes sharp. They've been searching. No, I said quietly. I walked to the desk, ran my fingers along the surface. Stopped. They found something. Vera turned. What? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I crouched slowly and reached underneath the desk, feeling along the underside where the wood dipped slightly near the back edge. There. Still there. My fingers pressed against the small latch Harold had shown me once, years ago, when we still thought secrets were just curiosities, not safeguards. A soft click. The panel shifted. Vera leaned in. Hidden compartment? I pulled it open. Empty. Silence. That was the moment it hit. Not what they took, but what that meant. They know, I said. Vera's voice lowered. Know what? I stood up slowly, my hand still resting on the edge of the desk. They know the depot isn't just a building, I said. They know about the access rights. Vera's expression hardened. And they were looking for the original documents. Yes. A beat. Then she asked the question that mattered most. Do they have them? I met her eyes. No. Why not? Because I moved them. Years ago. After Harold died. Because even then, something in me didn't trust how quiet interest in this place had been. I exhaled slowly. They took copies, I said, or fragments. Enough to know what they're dealing with. But not enough to prove it, Vera added. Exactly. Which meant one thing. Corbin wasn't done. He wasn't trying to steal something blindly anymore. He was trying to complete a puzzle. And he was missing one piece. I walked to the window, staring out into the dark river beyond. He's going to push the guardianship harder now, I said. Faster. Vera nodded. Because that gives him legal reach. Yes. I turned back to her. And if he gets it, even temporarily, he can force access, she finished. Silence settled again. But this time, it wasn't uncertainty. It was clarity. I reached into my coat and pulled out my phone. Vera watched me. Who are you calling? She asked. I looked at the screen for a second, then back at her. The one place he hasn't checked yet, I said. And what's that? I pressed the call button. My past, I replied quietly. The line started ringing. Because if Corbin was chasing what he thought was hidden, then it was time I decided exactly when and how it would be found. The line rang longer than I expected, not because no one was there, because the person on the other end didn't answer quickly for anyone anymore. Finally, a click. Then a voice, older than I remembered. but still sharp enough to cut through anything unnecessary. "Miriam Bellwether," he said. "You don't call unless something's wrong." "Good evening, Hollis," I replied. Vera raised an eyebrow slightly at the name, but said nothing. A pause. Then, "What did your son do?" Hollis Vane asked. I almost smiled. "Attempted transfer, forged signature, incoming guardianship petition," I said. "And he's negotiating my property behind my back." Silence. Not surprised. Not shocked. Just processing. "Is he working alone?" Hollis asked. "No," I said. "Larch and Vale." Another pause. Longer this time. "That explains the timing," he muttered. Vera shifted slightly. "He knew," she whispered. "Of course he did." People like Hollis always know who's moving money before the money moves. "Hollis," I continued, "I need to know exactly what he's tried to access." Papers rustled on the other end. Keyboard clicks. Then, "He came in 2 days ago," Hollis said. "Presented a proxy request. Claimed you'd authorized document duplication." "I didn't." "I know," he said. "I stalled it." "Good." "What did he ask for?" I pressed. Another pause. Then Hollis spoke slower. "Not accounts," he said. "Not liquid assets." That narrowed it down. "He asked for sealed property records," he added. Vera's eyes sharpened. "Specifically," Hollis continued, "historic rights attached to Bellwether Tea Depot." There it was, confirmed. "He knows enough," Vera murmured. "Not everything," I said quietly. Hollis spoke again. "Miriam, those documents are restricted for a reason." "I remember," I said. "Then you also remember," he continued, "that if someone presents legal authority, even temporary, they can compel access." Guardianship. That was the move. "He's not just trying to sell," Vera said under her breath. "He's trying to unlock." Exactly. I tightened my grip on the phone slightly. "Hollis," I said, "what happens if he gets emergency control?" "He gets review rights within 48 hours, Hollis replied. "And if he knows what to ask for, he'll get it. Too fast, too clean, too dangerous." I closed my eyes for just a second. 48 hours. That was all it would take for him to turn suspicion into ownership. "And if I move first?" I asked. Silence. Then, "How far are you willing to go?" Hollis asked. I opened my eyes again. Looked at Vera. At the empty office behind us. At everything that had already been touched. "Far enough," I said. Another pause. Then Hollis exhaled slowly. "Then listen carefully," he said. Vera stepped closer now, listening too. "You don't defend the asset," Hollis continued. "You remove it." Vera frowned. "Remove it?" "Legally," he said. "You transfer control before he can reach it. Lock it into a structure he can't override." A trust. Of course. My mind moved quickly now, faster than it had all day. "Can it be done that fast?" I asked. "If everything is in order, yes," Hollis said. "But you'll need signatures, witnesses, and immediate filing." Vera was already nodding. "We can do that," she said. I looked at her. Really looked. "Tonight?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "If we have to," she said. "Good." Because we did. "Hollis," I said. Prepare everything. Full restriction. No proxy access. No exceptions. Done, he replied. And one more thing, I added. A pause. Yes? I glanced toward the doorway, toward the direction Corbin had left. If anyone comes asking again, I said quietly, I want to know before they finish the sentence. A low breath on the other end. You'll know, Hollis said. Then the line went dead. Silence settled in again, but it felt different now, not defensive, strategic. Vera crossed her arms slowly. Well, she said, that changes things. Yes, I replied. I slipped the phone back into my coat. He's racing for control, I said. And we're about to take the finish line away, she added. I gave a small nod, then turned toward the exit. Let's go, I said. Where? Vera asked. I didn't slow down. Somewhere he'll never expect, I said. And what's that? I pushed the door open, letting the cold night air hit my face. The place where I stop reacting and start ending this. Because if Corbin thought he was close, he was wrong. He wasn't near the end. He was standing right at the beginning of losing everything. We didn't go back to the inn. We didn't go home. We didn't even speak for the first 5 minutes in the car. Because once you understand the board, you stop talking and you start placing pieces. Marrow House, Vera said finally. I nodded. Of course she knew. Marrow House Conservatory, glass ceilings, private events, investors who liked to pretend their money had taste. If Larch and Vale was still interested, if Sloane hadn't fully walked away, that's where Corbin would try to fix it. He'll try to reassure them, Vera continued. Spin what happened tonight. He already is, I said. Because that's what Corbin did. He didn't retreat. He rewrote. And if he convinces them, Vera added, they'll wait for the guardianship to go through. Which gives him exactly what he needs, I finished. 48 hours. That number stayed in my head like a ticking clock. We pulled up just past the conservatory, not directly in front. Lights glowed through the glass structure, warm and inviting, like nothing ugly had ever happened inside it. That illusion always sells better. They're already gathering, Vera said quietly. I watched people move inside. Tailored suits, controlled laughter, wine glasses held like decisions had already been made. Corbin's world. Or at least, the one he wanted. He thinks he can recover this, I said. Can he? Vera asked. I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was, if we did nothing tonight, yes, he could. That's what made this moment dangerous. Not the past. Not what he'd already done, but what he could still salvage. I opened the car door. Then we don't let him, I said. Vera didn't move right away. Careful, she said. This isn't the depot. This is controlled space. His kind of environment. I stepped out anyway. Then we change the environment. She's standing outside the very room where her son is trying to sell her life like a business deal. So tell me, do you walk away and fight quietly, or walk in and make sure everyone hears the truth? Me? I wouldn't let him control the story. We didn't go through the main entrance, not yet. Instead, we circled the side of the building, past the service corridor where staff moved quickly, unnoticed. That's where truth usually enters, through doors meant for people no one pays attention to. Inside, the air was different. Warmer, perfumed, controlled. Voices carried softly through the glass and greenery. Temporary complication, I heard Corbin say somewhere deeper inside. Nothing that affects the long-term position. There he was, already rewriting. Vera glanced at me. You hear that? I nodded. He's stabilizing the narrative, she said. Then we destabilize it, I replied. But not yet, not rushed. Timing mattered more than volume. We moved closer, staying just outside the main hall, where the doors stood partially open. From there, I could see them. Corbin. Tessa beside him, composed as ever. And around them, investors. Not friends, not family. People who only cared about certainty. That was the key. Not emotion, not betrayal. Certainty. He's selling confidence, Vera murmured. I watched him. The posture, the tone, the calm. Yes, I said quietly. And we're about to remove it. I stepped back slightly, not retreating, positioning. Not now, Vera said, reading me. You're waiting. Yes. For what? I looked at the room again. At the way they leaned toward him. At the way he controlled the pace. At the way they believed him. For now. For the moment, I said quietly, when they're fully committed to his version. Vera's lips curved slightly. Because that's when it hurts most, she said. I met her eyes. Exactly. I adjusted my coat, straightened my posture, not as a performance, as a signal. To myself. Then I looked back at the room one last time. They think I'm already out of the picture, I said. Vera nodded. Good, she replied. I stepped toward the door. Let's make sure, I said quietly. They never forget who the picture belongs to. We didn't rush in. That would have made it emotional. And emotion is easy to dismiss. Instead, I waited until Corbin lifted his glass, until the room settled, until every eye was already on him. That was the moment. I stepped through the door, no announcement, no hesitation, just presence. At first, no one noticed. That's the thing about rooms like this. People only see what they expect to see. But then one person turned, then another. And slowly, the silence spread. Corbin didn't see me immediately. He was mid-sentence. As I was saying, once the temporary legal structure is finalized, the transition will be smooth and fully within my authority. That's when he saw me. The words stopped. Mid-air, like they'd hit something solid. Me. For a second, no one spoke. Not him, not Tessa, not the investors. Just glass, light, and the quiet sound of everything shifting. I took a few steps forward. Not fast, not slow, just enough. You should finish that sentence, I said calmly. Corbin stared at me. Not anger, not yet. Shock. How exactly, I continued, does one claim authority over something that isn't theirs? A ripple moved through the room. Subtle, but real. Tessa recovered first. Of course she did. Miriam, she said, smooth, controlled. This isn't the place. No, I said. Then I looked at her. This is exactly the place. That landed, because everyone there understood one thing. If something is said in a room like this, it matters. Corbin stepped forward now, lowering his voice. You need to leave, he said. You're making a mistake. I tilted my head slightly. No, I replied. You already made yours. Vera entered behind me then. Quiet. Precise. She didn't need attention. She just needed position. One of the investors, older, careful, cleared his throat. Mr. Bellwether, he said, is everything all right here? Corbin forced a breath. Yes, he said quickly. Just a family misunderstanding. Is it? I asked. I turned slightly, just enough to address the room. Not loudly, but clearly. My name is Miriam Bellwether, I said, and everything being discussed tonight belongs to me. Silence, not polite, not uncertain. Sharp. Focused. Corbin stepped closer. Stop this, he said under his breath. I didn't look at him. I kept my eyes on the room. Earlier today, I continued, my son submitted documents to have me declared incapable of managing my own affairs. That did it. The room shifted, not emotionally, strategically. People like this don't react to drama. They react to risk. Tessa's composure cracked, just slightly. That's not, she started. Vera raised a hand and calmly tapped her phone. The recording filled the room. Once it's approved, I'll have full authority. The depot, the house, the accounts, everything. No shouting, no distortion. Just his voice. Clear, certain, final. When it ended, the silence that followed was heavier than anything said before it. One of the investors set his glass down. Carefully, another leaned back, studying Corbin with new eyes. Not trust, assessment. Good. Let them see him properly. Corbin stepped forward again, faster now. This was taken out of context, he said. She's manipulating. Am I? I asked. Then I finally looked at him. Fully. Directly. You told them I wasn't in a position to object, I said. Do you want to repeat that now? He didn't. Of course he didn't. Because now there were witnesses. Vera spoke next. Measured. Precise. Forgery has already been identified in submitted documents, she said. And we are prepared to escalate this formally if necessary. That word, forgery, hit harder than anything else because it didn't belong to family conflict. It belonged to consequences. Sloan, who had been silent until now, finally stepped forward. Mr. Bellwether, he said slowly, I believe this discussion is no longer appropriate for this setting. That was it. Not anger. Not accusation. Withdrawal. Corbin turned toward him. You're just going to walk away? Sloan held his gaze. I'm going to step away from uncertainty, he said. And that was the collapse. Not loud, not dramatic, but complete. Because in this room, uncertainty kills deals faster than betrayal. I took one step closer, not to Corbin, to the center, to the place he had just lost. This property, I said calmly, is not for sale. Another ripple, stronger this time. And any future discussions, I added, will happen directly with me, or not at all. No one argued. No one interrupted. Because now, they understood. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't decline. This was control. Reclaimed. I turned slightly toward Corbin. Just enough. This is where it stops, I said quietly. He didn't answer. Didn't move. Just stood there, realizing not that he'd been caught, but that he'd been seen. And that's worse. Corbin didn't chase after Sloane. That was the first sign he understood how bad it really was. Because men like him don't run after people who've already decided to leave. They try to recover what's still salvageable. He turned back to the room instead. To the investors who hadn't walked out yet. To the few who were still standing there, weighing numbers against risk. Opportunity against exposure. Let's not overreact, he said, forcing steadiness back into his voice. This is being exaggerated. A family disagreement turned into forgery? One of them interrupted, not loud, but precise. Corbin's jaw tightened. That hasn't been proven, he said quickly. Vera stepped forward just enough to be heard. It will be, she said. No emotion, no threat, just certainty. That was worse. Tessa moved then, stepping in beside Corbin, trying to reshape the moment before it collapsed completely. You're all experienced enough to know how these things look from the outside, she said, her tone smooth again. A concerned son? An elderly parent under stress. Stop, I said. Not sharp, not raised, but final. She froze. And for the first time since I'd known her, she didn't have the next line ready. I took a step forward. You don't get to rewrite this one, I said. Silence settled again. But now it wasn't tension, it was distance. The kind that appears when people start stepping back mentally, even if they haven't moved physically yet. One of the investors, tall, gray-haired, the kind who'd seen too many deals go wrong, looked directly at Corbin. Did you file guardianship papers? He asked. Simple question, no escape in it. Corbin hesitated. There it was again. That fraction of a second that gives everything away. Yes, he said finally, as a precaution. Another pause. Then the same man nodded slowly. I see. And just like that, it was over. Not because of shouting, not because of proof, because of pattern. People like him had seen this before, and they knew exactly where it ended. Another guest quietly set his glass down and stepped away. Then another. No scene, no confrontation. Just exit. One by one, until the room that had felt full minutes ago started to empty. Corbin turned slightly, watching it happen. And this time, he couldn't stop it. Tessa's voice came lower now. Urgent. Say something, she whispered. Fix this. But there was nothing left to fix. Because this wasn't about presentation anymore. It was about trust. And once that breaks in a room like this, it doesn't come back. Sloane's assistant approached quietly, saying something under his breath to the remaining staff. Within seconds, the music softened. Lights shifted, not dramatically, just enough to signal. End of event. I watched Corbin as he realized it. Really realized it. Not the embarrassment. Not the argument. The loss. The deal. The control. The version of the future he had already started spending in his head. You didn't have to do this, he said. His voice wasn't loud now. It was tight, fractured. I looked at him, calm, steady. "I didn't," I said. Then I held his gaze. "You did." That landed harder than anything else, because it was true, and he knew it. Vera stepped beside me again. "We're done here," she said quietly. But I didn't move yet. Not quite. There was one last thing. I turned back to the room, what was left of it, and spoke clearly. "This property," I said, "is no longer under personal control." Corbin frowned. "What?" I didn't look at him. "I've initiated transfer into a protected structure," I continued. "Effective immediately." Now I turned, just enough, to prevent exactly this. Silence. Different now. Heavier. Because this wasn't about stopping him anymore. It was about removing the possibility entirely. "You can't do that," Corbin said. I met his eyes. "I already did." And that was the moment something finally broke. Not loud, not visible, but final. Because he understood. This wasn't a delay. This wasn't a setback. This was the end of access, the end of leverage, the end of everything he thought he could still recover. Tessa grabbed his arm slightly. "We need to go," she said under her breath. For once. He didn't argue. He just stood there for a second longer, looking at me, trying to find something. Weakness. Doubt. Anything. He didn't, because there was nothing left to take. He turned and walked away. Not fast, not slow, just done. I watched him leave. Didn't call after him. Didn't stop him. Because this part wasn't about bringing him back. It was about letting him go, without anything that wasn't his. Vera exhaled quietly beside me. "Well," she said, "that was cleaner than expected." I nodded once. "Yes," I replied. Then I looked around the emptying room, at the quiet, at the aftermath. "At least here," I added, because something told me this wasn't the last move, not for him, but for me. I was already ahead. I didn't go home that night. Not because I was afraid, because I wasn't finished. The next morning came quietly. No sirens, no urgent calls, just a pale line of light across the curtains of the Blue Heron Inn and the distant sound of water moving the same way it always had, steady, indifferent, uninterrupted. Vera was already awake, sitting at the small desk with her glasses low on her nose, reviewing documents. "It's done," she said without looking up. I stepped closer. "All of it?" She nodded. "Trust filed, emergency protections in place. No proxy access, no transfer rights, no forced review without direct court oversight." I let that settle. "So he can't touch anything," I said. "Not without going through you," Vera replied. Good. That was how it should have been from the beginning. My phone buzzed softly on the table. One message. "Unknown number. You ruined everything." I stared at it for a second, then turned the phone face down. "No," I said quietly. I stopped it. 3 weeks later, I stood inside the depot again. But it didn't feel the same. The dust was gone. The windows were open. Light moved through the space instead of getting trapped in it. Elodie stood near the old office, sleeves rolled up, arguing gently with a contractor about preserving the original brick instead of covering it. "History matters," she said. I smiled. Yes, it does. Nina came in just after, carrying a box of files and a paper bag that smelled faintly of cinnamon and something sharper. Cardamom, maybe. "Thought you might forget to eat," she said. "I don't forget," I replied. "Then you ignore," she said. Also true. Vera stepped in last, closing the door behind her. "It's official," she said. "Preliminary review on the guardianship request. Denied." No surprise, but still. Final. "And Corbin?" I asked. Vera's expression didn't change. "Investigation is ongoing," she said. "Forgery, misrepresentation, attempted financial control. It won't be quick." "It shouldn't be. Some things take time." I walked slowly across the room, my hand brushing along the old wooden beam Harold used to lean against when he thought no one was watching him think. "So this is it," Elodie said, stepping closer. "You're really doing it?" I looked at her. "At last," I said. The Bellwether Trust would turn this place into something new, not erased, not replaced, reclaimed. A place where women like me, women who had built something, lost something, or nearly had it taken, could walk in and not feel small, or dismissed, or inconvenient. A place where signatures meant something again, where voices weren't rewritten, where no one could quietly disappear someone else's life behind paperwork and polite smiles. Nina set the bag down on the desk. Vera adjusted a file. Elodie started explaining something about restoration timelines, and for a moment, just a moment, everything felt right. Not perfect, but mine. I did write to Corbin, one letter. No anger, no softness, just truth. I told him I knew exactly what he tried to do. I told him I wouldn't erase it. And I told him something else. That if he ever wanted to speak to me again, it wouldn't be as someone who needed something. It would be as someone who finally understood what he tried to take. I don't know if he will. And for the first time in my life, I don't need to know. If this story made you feel something, stay with me. Like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, at what moment would you have stopped trusting him?